presentations and ask that, I believe Ms. Jennifer Anderson, The Good Company, and Mona Aging and Wellness are present today. So if I could ask our orderlies to invite them all in, and we'll start with Ms. Anderson in the order. I believe we have one missing or who hasn't arrived yet. All of these things are... Thank you very much. I want to welcome our guests in due course. I will ask each one to introduce themselves. We are ready to hear from you. But before we do, I just want to remind the committee and for the benefit too of the public, the context of the committee and the mandate of the committee. This committee was convened consequent on a private member's motion tabled by Senator Morris, which motion was unanimously approved by the members of the Senate. And that motion calls for us to investigate the matter of a single law that deals with the care, the protection, and other issues of older persons. And in particular, the committee's work is to culminate in proposals that set out the scope and magnitude of such a law. And so we have to date heard from ministries, departments, and agencies who have shared with us their portfolio area and shared with us the various initiatives, programs, and some have made some proposals to us in relation to what such a law should contain. We are very pleased to hear from members of the public who are living and breathing circumstances relevant to our mandate. And in particular, this committee is focused on relevant, actionable proposals that are legislative remedies in nature. And I want to emphasize that because we have, in the course of our deliberations and these hearings, heard a lot about various programs and initiatives, activities that are directed at the community of older persons. And while those have been very helpful to us in terms of understanding the needs, the concerns, the challenges, not all of those matters are matters that can be captured in legislation. And so we are grateful to learn and continue to be open to hearing, but we do want to ensure that we're focusing our minds, my committee members and I, on those matters that require our legislative action. So with that said, just reminding my colleagues online to just use the raise hand feature, so we are monitoring the online platform so that once you have an intervention, we can recognize you. Given the number of presentations we have, and some of them look quite meaty, I am proposing that we allow the members to perhaps get through a slide or get to a particular break before we begin the interventions. I'm not going to go as far as saying wait until the presentation is over, but just to kind of gauge where we are, so we take the points relevant to the particular section of their presentation. And so without further ado, we have Miss Jennifer Anderson here, and Miss Anderson has, is it Miss or Mrs.? Ms. Ms. Anderson has submitted, has delivered a submission. Members should have a copy and should have read it prior. So if you want to just refer, to that submission. I don't see Miss Anderson's submission here. You have it? Okay. Yes. Very well. If you want to refer to that submission. So I'm going to ask those presenting just to introduce yourself, give us a little bit about your background, particularly because some of you might be new to us, and your interest and background of work in the area, and then launch right into your presentation. I hope if anyone has a PowerPoint or presentation that needs to be put on the screen, that was sent prior. Yes. Okay. All right, Ms. Anderson, welcome. Okay, just for the mic purposes, so if you press on your mic, your light will go green, and then I will turn on your mic. Thank you.
It's on. Good morning. My name is Jennifer Anderson. I'm a local resident of St. Thomas. I am here with my father and another local resident of St. Thomas. Now, my background is that I have worked in a number of social care settings, primarily working with young people across the board in different settings, but that was in the UK. So I'm now a senior citizen, and I'm now residing in Jamaica, and I'm looking at some of the gaps that I think are missing from the care for senior citizens. I've had a number of chats with many senior citizens within the locality where I reside, and they have helped me to inform my presentation today. I'm also here with my elderly father. He's 87.
And colleagues, can I just specially welcome Mr. Lenford Anderson, who I met outside. I told him he was specially welcome today because I've often said, Mr. Anderson, that you're looking at a committee who are not quite yet older persons. And so we are grateful for your presence and grateful for your counsel and grateful for your perspective. So a special welcome to you.
Thank you. Right. So that's me in a nutshell, basically. So I am a senior citizen myself because I've gone past a certain age.
All right, so Ms. Anderson, please go ahead and share with us.
Right, okay. So, where do I begin? Jamaica is a population aging rapidly, and it states that by 2050, it's estimated that nearly 1 in 4 Jamaicans will be over the age of 60. Yet, too many of our elders are currently living alone, without family support, not receiving regular meals, and going years without seeing a doctor. And some of them are experiencing abuse, neglect, or exploitation, often behind closed doors. We must act now to help safeguard our senior citizens and help to improve the quality of their lives. I know that I'm saying this and it's probably not running according to the script that I initially put it forward, but it will come together. So, in Jamaica, when we speak about getting older, too often we hear stories tied to decline, frailty, isolation, or dependency. But I'm here to offer a different vision, one where growing older is not a burden, but a continuation of meaningful life, full of purpose, connection, and dignity. Retirement should not mean retreat. It should mean a new chapter, one that respects the fact that older persons have played a vital role in our nation. Our seniors have worked, served, and nurtured Jamaica. It's only just that we, as a society, ensure they are supported, safe, empowered to live independently for as long as possible. To accomplish this, it can only be done through a holistic approach, looking at all aspects of a person: the physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, and social well-being. Partnering with ministries of health, social care, and labour alongside NGOs, churches, and individuals within the community to ensure every senior has the right to independence and a low risk of harm, with access to quality home care, community health, and transportation services. Provide subsidised health care for seniors to relieve financial strain on families and individuals. Develop smart and safe, elder-friendly community spaces, places where seniors can have access to healthy diets, connect with others, engage in social and cultural activities, and remain part of society. This can help to evoke a sense of purpose and belonging and inclusivity, removing the fear of isolation and low self-esteem. If we can shift our mindset, aging is not about diapers and cognitive decline. It's about dignity with wisdom and continuity. Our elders must be seen as valuable contributors, not passive dependents. They all have a story to tell, so let's help to do just that. Using simple equipment, we can upskill persons to record their journey. They can talk about their life and document it. This will allow them to get involved in the digital revolution. We can even do a podcast involving some of the seniors. And if we look at some of the international countries like Japan, they offer a lot of support and interventions to their seniors. China has a legal obligation for adult children to support elders. In Scandinavia, older adults are celebrated for their reliability and insight. They continue to work part-time, volunteer, and mentor others. Their societies thrive because they see aging not as an end, but as a resource. Jamaica can do the same, implementing strict penalties for persons who prey on the vulnerability of our elders. I've recently learned the United Nations, alongside global government, are trying to create a treaty that protects and, trying to protect and empowers the elderly and persons with disability. We in Jamaica can join the movement by allocating national funding for elder care infrastructure, encouraging innovation in elder care through partnerships with social enterprises and startups and local companies, creating networks of elder-focused hubs where seniors feel safe, included, and respected. Let us make Jamaica a place where our elders are not forgotten or just sitting alone on the veranda in isolation. Instead, they are celebrated and actively engaged with the wider community. Jamaica should be the model for the region, a nation where our elderly population move away from isolation and dependency and move towards a more connected, meaningful life. Let us give our seniors the retirement they truly deserve. So I can, from this, I can then go into some actions. Yes? So, a transformative vision where dignity, independence, and joy is an integral part of any legislative care, ensuring legislation is in place to protect the elder of the population. A Jamaica where elder citizens, whether in corporate or rural areas, enjoy lives of dignity, independence, joy, and are supported by community of caring and innovative resources. Working together with the United Nations to develop international policy that will have a profound impact in the way we care for our elderly persons. The Charter will ensure matters concerning persons who cause harm or violate or discriminate against the elderly to be dealt with swiftly and appropriately. Principles of care, respect and dignity. Every senior deserves respect and recognition as a valuable member of society. Independence. Encourage autonomy by providing resources and support that allow seniors to lead more purposeful lives. Community connection. Create opportunities for intergenerational bonding and community engagement to combat isolation. Community connection. Safety and protection. Protect seniors from abuse, neglect, or exploitation through stringent safety measures, including vetting, identification verification, and character checks to ensure persons applying to work with elders are responsible and trustworthy. So this will mean an enhanced mandatory criminal records checking system. And then we look at accommodation. Established assisted living accommodation that allows seniors to live independently with support of trained staff. Offer opportunity for social interaction, day centers or clubs, specific health visitors that are employed to do home visits. They should be attached to the doctor's surgery funding by the NHS. Ensure seniors get regular health checks. Design spaces where accessibility in mind, including mobility aids, emergency response systems, and recreational areas. Strategic outreach and support. Recruit and train additional health visitors and social workers assistants to provide consistent, high-quality support for elderly residents. Develop strategic outreach programs to reach vulnerable seniors in rural and remote areas. Community hubs. Establish community hubs across Jamaica where seniors can engage in activities such as brain-stimulating games and puzzles to slow down the onset of degenerative disorders. Arts and crafts, cultural events to foster creativity and socialization. Promote the hubs as centers for lifelong learning and social interaction. Technology training for seniors. Offer free or subsidized training for seniors on setting up and using email accounts, navigating the internet safely, using mobile phones to stay connected with family and community, provide ongoing support through tech-savvy volunteers or local community centers. Such activities will encourage intergenerational community connectedness. Healthy living in the golden years. Promote physical well-being through subsidized Keep Fit programs, including yoga, aerobics, and dance. Encourage healthy eating by collaborating with local farmers to access fresh and affordable produce. Partner with healthcare providers to offer regular screening and health checks and workshops on healthy lifestyle and general well-being. Free eye and hearing test every 2 years. And then we talk about an Adopt a Gran initiative. It's like a metaphor for caring for your elderly neighbor. So create a mentorship-style scheme that pairs seniors who do not have access to an extended family network. Introduce a working and professional relationship with caring individuals such as students in higher education or local families who can offer time and support to help directly address loneliness. Promoting social bonds, building a more inclusive society through bridging the generational gap. We can also help develop meaningful relationships and assist in combating isolation. Working with tertiary institutions to facilitate the process through relevant modules and journal styles. Comprehensive vetting, a comprehensive vetting process for caregivers, implementing mandatory vetting and background checks for anyone seeking to work with elderly citizens. Provide training programs that will sensitize and educate caregivers on proper care techniques for our elders, including how to recognize signs of cognitive decline, minimizing the risk of abuse. Priority line for senior support. Work in partnership with the JIS to establish a dedicated toll-free helpline to provide our seniors and their families with quick access to information, resources, and support services. Implementation and accountability. Work with local governments, NGOs, and community organizations to fund and deliver programs. Regularly evaluate the program effectiveness through feedback from service users and other stakeholders. using key performance indicators based on the principles of care. Ensuring transparency and accountability through published reports and independent audits. By going forward with these initiatives, we can create an environment where Jamaica's elderly population thrives with dignity, independence, and a connection to their communities, bringing urgency and structure to areas of safeguarding, outreach, and accessibility. And that is where I will close, if there are any questions on that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Anderson.
I know it was a lot to take in.
Yes,
but I hope you followed it.
And I realize that you may have updated your presentation, so I'd be very grateful if you would provide a copy of the updated presentation to us.
Yes.
So that we can have it for our deliberations when the committee starts to hunker down.
Yeah.
Members, the floor is open. Senator Gale.
Thank you, Chair. You know, every time we meet, there's a different perspective to the submissions made to this committee. And today I'm looking at a community-based kind of approach.
Yes.
For the first time, we are having this community feeling in terms of what has taken place. You know, St. Thomas had some far-reaching communities, the Bath, the Cedar Valley. When you try to reach some of these communities, they tell you it's just around the corner, but you know it's not around the corner. And I would want to have a kind of perspective as to how the elderly treats with issues like just mere transportation, getting to some of the health centers, the clinics on a routinely basis, the type of facility that are there, genuinely need for upgrade.
Yes.
Yeah? But I would want to get a feeling as to what are some of the more challenges that the elderly would have. Maybe not that we can pursue in legislation, but certainly policies to assist the elderly in a parish that we know is growing and developing. Yeah. Could you give us a little more on your perspective?
Well, I would say that at the moment, you know, some of the challenges that many of the elderly are facing are that they're living alone. They are alone. Maybe, you know, there are many different factors why they are alone. Some of them, they may have family members, direct family members that are not local. They've traveled. So,
and some of them are widowed and
some of them are widowed. My father, he's a widow. We lost my mother 5 years ago. Yeah. So there are many of them that are there. They're on their own. They've not been seen by a doctor for many years. Many years. And they're still sort of pottering around locally, but they might be, you know, have a hearing impairment, vision, and some of them are still driving. Not been seen by a doctor for many years. Many, many years. So it's about having health visitors or outreach workers from the surgery, because they would have people on their books. They will know the age of that person. If that person has not been to the surgery in a while, there needs to be regular, even every quarter. Somebody needs to make a phone call, you know. We could be looking at having social work aides. So the social worker will do the assessment, but alongside them they will have an aide that can actually do some of the outreach and work with some of the church organizations. Some of these hubs could start off within some of the churches because the buildings are there. They're not being used every day. So that, you know, it's utilizing some of the resources that are there because many of the seniors, they would go to the church, but they may find it a little bit difficult walking into Morant Bay, not walking in, right, but walking into a surgery in Morant Bay for a social activity. And also, you know, many of these communities, particularly in St. Thomas, have had, when they were designed, they had land allocated for community centers. But these community centers never came to the fore. The land was there, it was allocated for that, but they seem to be moving to a different direction and not for what it was intentionally purposed for. So it's about, it needs to be somebody from, I guess, the parish council, being aware that these spaces were designated for community use. So there's issues around that. Transportation is definitely an issue for many seniors. If there was like a dial-a-ride, where they could, it could be a subsidized bus, like how you have the school bus, or you could be using the school bus during the times when children are not in school, maybe during the holidays. And that
or during school time.
Yes, or during the school times, yes. To transport the elderly. So transportation, from some of the persons that I've spoken to, they have mentioned about transportation, because when they go in some of the public transports, the music is not appropriate, the speed, and they genuinely are holding on for dear life, really. So they have mentioned to me, transportation is definitely something that is on their agenda. What else have they mentioned?
Thank you for that perspective.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Gill.
Okay.
Senator Longmore and then Senator Floyd Morris in order of.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Anderson. Thank you for being here, and welcome to your dad, too. I appreciate his presence, definitely. I just want to congratulate you on your approach. You said, I think your background is in social work, and it reflects, and I appreciate that. And your initial outlook on the holistic presentation, I see your inclusion of the spiritual health component, which especially becomes very significant later in life. But I want to zone in on, as Senator Gill mentioned, your very community-based approach. And one or two of the initiatives, even just now regarding the transportation, just to highlight the significant input that can be had with the enhancement of our ancestral intelligence. As we see technology coming in and the threats from AI, and we get concerned about that, it is one of the strategies for us to remind, especially our younger generations, where they're coming from. And that is a significant collaboration that you mentioned in terms of the Adopt-A-Gran, and even now your Dial-A-Ride, where you could have that cohesion. But I also want us to recognize, too, that the interconnectivity amongst the elderly. You mentioned loneliness, and necessarily, to be honest with you, to be alone doesn't necessarily mean that you're lonely. It's really, there's other factors that impact. But a significant number of our population at that age, they have lost connectivity with their own peers. And because they, as they age, would have lost close friendships and family members, it becomes even more necessary to have similar age group connectivity. So I just wanted to recognize that and appreciate it, and my own little thing about the ancestral intelligence. I think that what you spoke of ties very well into that. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Longmore. Senator Morris? Can you unmute yourself, please?
Hello?
Yes, we're hearing you, Senator Morris. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Good morning, colleagues, and pleasant good morning to Ms. Anderson and her father. And also, I think I saw my very good friend, Professor Denise Edelmeyer Shearer online. And, respect due to her all the time, Madam Chair. So, pardon me for bigging her up. But, it's a very good presentation. Another very good presentation that is very engaging. And I just wanted to make two interventions. One, to inform Ms. Anderson that the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities has been indeed established, and Jamaica has signed and ratified the treaty and has been actively participating in its implementation to the point where we have a Disabilities Act. And one of the reasons for moving for legislation to protect our senior citizens is to what I regard as closing the circle, because we already have legislation for our children, we have legislation to protect our women, we have legislation to protect our population of persons with disabilities, and the only what is regarded as vulnerable group that is outstanding is our senior citizens. And so, okay, they have asked me to start my video. Just give me 1 second.
Yes, thank you for that, Senator Morris. And just a reminder to colleagues online to just turn on your video when you're making an intervention. And Senator Morris, if I could just make one further point before you start up again. And it is remiss of me, so I hope you crave your indulgence, Senator Morris. Our CMO, I gather, is online, and representatives from the Ministry of Health, who we did invite to monitor these meetings. CMO, I have never met you in person. I look forward to that one day, but please forgive me for not recognizing you at the commencement of this meeting. Welcome, and we thank you and your team for being present and interested in the deliberations of this committee.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome to the CMO as well, Dr. Bisesa. So as I was saying, we are closing the loop where that is concerned. We haven't signed the International Convention on the Elderly, and I guess Prof. Shearer, who was very much instrumental in those discussions, can elaborate on that when she speaks. But I also want to trigger another thing that just jumped at me as you made that very good presentation. And, our culture, in some sense, is dying. And there is need for more storytelling in communities and for our senior citizens to aid in bridging that intergenerational gap. My mother, for example, was an avid cook in the community, and she had the science of baking potato pudding down to to a particular level, and she never baked her potato pudding in any fancy ovens. She used the hella top, hella bottom, hallelujah in the middle. Our younger generation don't understand or know anything about that. When you tell them about tire leaf, or Senator Gale that blew something, they don't know what you're talking about and how to do a good dokono using the banana leaf and so forth. And I think that we have to form some spaces where our senior citizens can interact with the younger generation and pass on those cultural practices. Yeah. So I think we will have to formulate a way in the legislation in how we can create those spaces that will allow for storytelling, sharing of cultural practices from our senior citizens to the younger generation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Morris. Do I have any other members on? No. I must say, Ms. Anderson, that as I turn my lawyer mind to what could properly be part of a law, and I heard you speak to stricter penalties for offenses against the older persons, abuse, etc. I heard you speak to the legal obligation for children to support parents.
Well,
you referenced
that's in China.
We do have that provision here in Jamaica too, under our Maintenance Act. But the committee has heard presentations in relation to how those provisions are used, and the truth is they're not used and they're not really practicable in the way we've drafted them. So we definitely have some deliberations to do on those. And I hear Senator Morris in terms of creating a legislative framework or including in law something that allows for those older spaces, those spaces for older persons. I heard a lot, though, that is a matter of policy decision and administrative action. And we had invited the Ministry of Labor to be present at this meeting. I gather the Permanent Secretary indicated yesterday that no one would be available for today's meeting. So I hope they will watch the recording of the meeting, because the National Senior Citizens Council, I think, would benefit from a discussion with you in that lived experience that you're having on some of the initiatives that you have suggested, perhaps to enhance their own programs or to incorporate and think about how they implement
to collaborate
some new ones. So I'm going to ask my committee clerk to put you in touch with the executive director of the National Senior Citizens Council so you can have that collaboration, and please feel free to just update the committee as to the progress of those kinds of conversations. Thank you so very much for coming, Mr. Anderson. It was our pleasure. It was our pleasure to have you here, sir. Is there anything you want to add? Has she covered everything? Has she done you proud? Yes, I think she has. I think she has. Thank you so much again for coming. Thank you for making the effort. This is what this committee is about. It's about our own citizens taking the time, thinking of their own circumstances and sharing it with us so that we have a better understanding as legislators in terms of how to make good law, make better law, make workable law for our citizens in Jamaica.
But one of the other things.
You have to turn your mic.
Is it okay? Right.
Yes.
One of the other things that I mentioned that I don't think was about the enhanced CRB, the criminal records check for those persons who are applying to work with.
Yes, I should have mentioned that.
Yeah.
So you talked about the persons applying for care for the elders, and we've had some discussion. Certainly, Sandra Latiba there, who is present, shared with us the need to have caregivers standardized, certified,
so there's a quality of care.
Yes. So we thank you. We add that to the contributions that have come before, and I'm sure we'll be able to dive a lot more into that when we hunker down.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
And we wish you're going back to St. Thomas?
Yes.
Yes, so we wish you Godspeed on the road. You have a nice new highway now, so don't speed. Mr. Anderson, no speeding. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
The committee is grateful for your contribution.
I will forward the updated.
Very well. Very well. Thank you. I understand, colleagues, that that Ms. Salmon Browers is here from the Matilda's Corner District Consultative Committee. She had been first on our list, but I understand she's here now. Thank you, ma'am. Can I invite you to come down to the front so that it's easier for us to hear from you, and invite you to make your presentation to us now. Yes, I'm seeing our time, and I think we have to kind of be judicious with it. So if I can just invite you to come down, and I will say, while Mrs. Salmon Browers is doing that, that we have read these presentations, and so I really want to ask those submitting to sort of focus on the legislative proposals, the proposals that that touch and concern the mandate of this committee, in the interest of time. So, Mrs. Salmon Browers, can I ask you to just introduce yourself, give us a little bit about your background and your organization, your work in this area or interest in this area, and we welcome you and we thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, and I am very grateful for the opportunity to represent our community. And I was very impressed by my colleague before who presented. I would like to say that the Matilda's Corner District Consultative Committee is part of a network of initiatives in which the Ministry of National Security and the Ministry of Justice, to which I belong, I'm a Justice of the Peace, are trying to cauterize the problems in our communities, to make our communities safer, to make our people more understanding of each other, and to ensure that the police and the citizens work together in harmony as much as possible. The Matilda's Corner District Consultative Committee, as you probably recognize, falls in the parish of St. Andrew and falls under the office of the Custos of St. Andrew, the Honorable Ian Forbes. He is the president of the St. Andrew Justice of the Peace Association, and as such, the consultative committees, of which Matilda's Corner is only one, fall under his command, so to speak. He's very supportive, and he's always there for us. We have several subcommittees. I won't go into them in the interest of time. And we try to do our best in getting the results that we want. We don't always succeed, but nevertheless, we try.
Let me ask a question. The consultative committees, are they made up of all JPs?
No, not at all. I should have clarified that. My apologies. It is normally headed by a JP. But there are other community members. The structure is that each neighborhood watch or community-based organization should have at least 4 representatives on the consultative committee. So for example, Matilda's Corner would probably have 4 people from Jacks Hill, 4 people from Millsboro, 4 people from Ligani, etc. Just to give you an idea, and Mona and so on. And the Matilda's Corner Consultative Committee has as its center the Matilda's Corner Police Station. We have a domestic violence intervention center there. As a matter of fact, we were the first to get one. And just to give you an idea of some of the things that we do. I'm a member of the CCRP, and I was assisting them in doing their report, which they made already. So I will not go over all those things, which also touch and concern members of our community. I would like to zero into the problem of accommodation.
And Mrs. Browse, I'm sorry, just before you speak, like I said, we have read the presentation, and I want to ask you just to focus on the issues without necessarily
the details.
The details, yes.
Okay.
I want to be very careful about
right.
that.
So, in terms of policy, we would like to see the Strata Commission more involved in solving problems where other units in the strata seek to take advantage or even dispossess the elderly because of their vulnerability. So you could have a situation where they do investigations to find out what is the source of the problem and assist the elderly, because many of the elderly persons don't really understand the mechanisms involved or even have the information necessary to help themselves. So they become frustrated and develop all sorts of illnesses because they don't know what to do. So essentially, I think there should be more in terms of protection for people, elderly people living in strata situations. And their needs should be taken into consideration.
Can I ask you, how widespread are you seeing this problem in your district?
It is, well, I know of at least 2 cases that have been brought to my attention. But there could be others, because sometimes people are afraid to speak about these things for different reasons.
Senator Gill.
Just to ask, this concept of district consultative committee, is it confined to just that location, or do you have others like this in other areas, other communities?
Yes, that's what I said in the beginning. Oh. There are several district consultative committees. For example, in St. Andrew, I think we have about 7.
Okay.
We have one recently, the Custos started one in Augustown. Mm-hmm. That is our last baby. And, well, Matilda's Corner has been around for quite some time. We started under Custos Dunwell. And there is Duane Park, which is linked to St. Andrew South, and so on.
Thank you. Senator Longmore.
Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Salmon Borers, appreciate your effort to be here this morning. I'm noticing in your submission, essentially to cut to the chase of it, individuals might be vulnerable in the sense of persons seeking to develop property without due compensation and so forth. And you brought some of that to our attention. Do you have any awareness of outside of your specific locale? Do you have any reflection as to this similar type of issue in rural Jamaica where you have significant persons? And I'm speaking especially around our farming communities, etc., where persons may not be making the will and may not be making the financial planning and might be especially vulnerable to this type of financial abuse, which it really is.
It is all over, ma'am. It is all over. And as a matter of fact, in Kingston here, sometimes the developers actually do things to intimidate the people. And some of them end up dead, to be very frank.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I think it is definitely something that we need to pay attention to. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you, colleagues. Senator Fraser-Binns, and then after this, we're going to move to the good company. I'm looking at the time.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be quick. And thank you, Mrs. Borras, for that presentation and for bringing that to our attention. But I wondered whether you could share with us what efforts, if any, have been made to engage the police, because, you know, when one reads the submission, these are very serious. And I wondered whether the police has been brought in, whether there are attempts to work with the Citizen Association or the police outreach to ensure that there is a direct line with the police in these matters.
Well, to be quite frank with you, we had a meeting in February in which both the SSP in charge of
Mrs. Broad, and I appreciate Senator Fraser-Binns' question. However, I'm very cautious about diving into the specifics of the situation, and I would really ask members to deal with the issue because, you know, matters reported here. I don't want us to start naming names.
No, Madam Chair, let me just say, because really I don't need the details.
Mrs. Browers.
You would appreciate that we don't need details, but certainly based on what the presentation of Mrs. Borras, then it seems to me that this matter is one that the police should have a direct, and because it is not a one-off matter, this matter is one that the police should have a direct role to play. It doesn't seem to me that it is specifically one for the Elderly Care Act, but one perhaps where direction is required to be given as to how to treat with it. It is in that regard why I asked about the engagement of the police, certainly not seeking details of the involvement of the police or any other such body, but to ascertain whether or not the police has been brought in, which you would agree would need to be brought in to assist in these matters.
The police was not brought into the matter, and as the chair has said, I would prefer not to go into the details.
Well, she's not asking for you to go into the details, Mrs. Browse. If the police were not brought into the matter, I think what Senator Fraser-Binns is suggesting, that this is a matter that is ripe for police attention, and the police ought to be, certainly a report can be made to the police so that they're alerted and they can investigate, because these are matters that existing laws, we have laws that exist already that deal with these kinds of matters. But I think I hear you on something that the committee needs to consider, which is the question of how elderly or older persons in strata communities what attention is paid to them. And the Strata Commission, the Commission on Strata Corporations has the mandate to oversight of strata communities, strata corporations. I do note, though, that there was, you expressed in your presentation that remedy was sought from the Strata Commission, and the Commission could not engage a dispute resolution mechanism between the parties because required financial statements were not provided. And I just, for some clarity, are these financial statements of the Strata community that ordinarily would need to be submitted to the Strata Commission?
That particular Strata has never filed a submission to the commission.
So was the commission, right? No, let me ask my question, please. Was the commission refusing to engage the dispute resolution mechanism because they had not done that?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So that's something that has a legislative remedy, because there's legislative duty, both on the part of the Strata community and on the part of the commission. I do recall being involved in amendments to the Strata Act several years, gosh, a lot of years ago now. But I'm not remembering all the details of it, but it's definitely something we'll note, because there is that one is an easy thing to fix in law.
And further to that, Madam, the Strata Commission is afraid to give advice because they want a hands-off approach to the problems, and the people without resources and information cannot defend themselves or even prepare a dispute resolution.
Okay.
So somebody have to help them to do it.
Understood. Senator Longmore.
Just a quick addition, and I don't know if you had gone into it because I'd stepped out, but in keeping with what Senator, what Chairperson is indicating, at the bottom of your submission you said, in addition, about 4 lawyers have taken whatever funding and you have not gotten anywhere, it seems. And your advocacy is also for lawyers to be cognizant of their work for the elderly. And in your mind, abusing the elderly.
Of course. So, they take money and they don't do anything.
So I think that this is something that, in addition to what the chair just brought to your attention, something for the committee to note.
Yeah, and again, that has existing remedies. If there's a situation where a member of the bar has done something, taken retainer from a client and has not performed, then the General Legal Counsel has a complaints mechanism that you can make a complaint and have your gross addressed. So that's something that perhaps at the community level, that older person could get some assistance.
Resources and information.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Mrs. Salmon-Browse. We do appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us your perspective. It's a unique one, the Strata community. And so we thank you for bringing that to our attention. It is definitely going to be something that we take a look at when we hunker down to craft our proposal. So we thank you so much for coming. I am now going to turn to the good company, and there's a presentation, members, that the good company has submitted to us. So I want to welcome Ms. Nadia McKenzie, and I'm going to ask her to introduce herself, tell us a little bit about herself and her company, and launch into her presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Turn off that mic.
Let me go ahead and share my screen if I'm... Not how I want to do it. 1 second. Oh, I could... Okay. Just a second here, please. My apologies. All right. All right, thank you. I am Nadia Mackenzie. I am CEO of Good Company. We founded Good Company as a social enterprise, and we believe in providing social services for seniors. We provide social engagement activities for seniors, anyone over 60, and that includes events, planned programs, weekly activities, anything that can provide social engagement opportunities for seniors. I am very glad to see Mona Aging here. I have studied under their esteemed leadership and education. I'm a graduate of their diploma program, postgrad diploma program in gerontology, where we studied aging and the concerns of seniors and the issues of seniors and how we can combat some of those challenges. I wanted to just, I hear you, Madam Chair, in terms of our time, so I'm going to try and provide an abridged version. Madam Chair, I want to just extend our appreciation and gratitude for the opportunity to share our recommendations with you and members of the committee. I also really want to commend Professor Floyd Morris for bringing this crucial matter forward, and I'm also very thankful for Ms. Rosemary Douglas Beckford for your coordination on our involvement in these proceedings as seamlessly as possible. As a social enterprise that serves this demographic, we recognize the urgent need for comprehensive legislation to protect and support Jamaica's senior citizens. We would have already heard a lot from presentations before, from our colleagues and organizations, and so I'm not going to duplicate efforts. We are completely aligned with the recommendations that have been put forward on the fundamental needs of the senior community. We saw where CCRP presented on a number of key areas for legislative action. We will only underscore the urgent need for consideration of those recommendations, but we really want to focus on, as a social enterprise that really believes in social engagement as one of the strongest tools for health amongst our senior citizens, we want to focus on improving the quality of life of every senior citizen in Jamaica so that they can age with dignity, respect, and security. So the specific challenges that I'm sharing and the vulnerabilities of our seniors that they face daily, we have witnessed this firsthand within our community. The Act is not just about protection, it's about empowerment and ensuring the highest quality of life possible for our seniors. As I mentioned, we're a growing community. We provide opportunities for active seniors to come together and socialize through programs and events. So we have karaoke nights, we have movie nights, we have dance parties. Pardon? We are 2 years old. We are almost at 400 seniors in our database. We have a team of 10 dedicated members, and we operate in Kingston and occasionally in St. Anne. Right. Our vision is really to empower older adults to live purposefully through social engagement and community. And you will notice that I use the phrase active seniors. And that's really to highlight seniors who are really focused and intentional about active aging. The process of optimizing opportunities for health, participation, and security in order to enhance quality of life as people age. So we recognize we were prepared to facilitate elderly and seniors who are coming to our events, and expecting that we would have to bolster for mobility issues and health concerns, and those are present and still necessary. But what we found as a greater demand was lifestyle opportunities, opportunities to earn, opportunities to learn, and opportunities to live on purpose. Within our community, when we refer to persons over the age of 75 as seniors, they outright rejected it. Over the age of 75, they didn't have any issues being called a senior. My apologies. But those who are below 75, 60 to 75, they outright rejected the term elderly. And they did not identify with the word senior. So currently, as much as possible, we refer to our members as older adults. And you'll recognize, and in some studies, you'll have categorizations of seniors, where you have young old, which is a 65 to 74, you have middle old, which is a 75 to 84, and you have what is referred to as old, which is 85 and over. So what we're recognizing is that there needs to be a redefinition and subcategories, right? Because the needs are different for these different subgroups. The opportunities for older adults to engage outside of their families and outside of church are extremely limited. They don't have spaces to come and socialize. And social circles and events are mainly focused on younger groups. And events that are actually focused on seniors, many of them tend to be cost prohibitive. And that leaves a significant number of adults who are independent and very willing and interested in being active. It leaves them socially isolated or experiencing loneliness. So our mission, we are combating loneliness and social isolation. We believe it's paramount for mental and physical well-being. And while studies differ on the percentage of risk, research has shown that social isolation is a significant risk factor for conditions such as dementia. Mental health and physical health are deeply interconnected. After putting on our first few events, we found that demand was so much greater than a monthly event. Our last movie night had over 100 patrons come out. But the feedback from our members was that they didn't just want a monthly event, they wanted activities that they could add to their daily calendar. They need lifestyle activities. We started our weekly dance classes, and that has been growing exponentially, because what we have done with programs is to provide seasonal fixes to this social engagement. Or we have a yearly competition, which is great and well attended. But what I'm advocating for is initiatives for community engagement, opportunities for meaningful activities, access to recreational facilities and lifelong learning programs, but not just as programs or one-off opportunities to connect, but lifestyle activities. So, for instance, our weekly dance programs. Imagine JLS, who currently there is a book review program, a yearly book review competition where anyone can join, right? I think they mentioned that it goes up to even 99. Anyone can decide to enter the competition and do a book review and enter the book review competition. But imagine instead JLS hosting book clubs. That is something that seniors can be a part of on a daily basis. They can come and they already have the resources. They can borrow books, become members of the library, they can form groups, they can even meet at the library. These are opportunities for social engagement that are low budget, and also things that we could collaborate as state and private and NGOs and non-profits and so many other organizations. Putting that together to ensure that we have the social engagement we need to combat loneliness and social isolation. These initiatives will require regulation because we don't want persons just jumping in without doing it according to policy. However, much of this will need to be executed in collaboration. I'll give another quick example, if I may. Make New York City Your Gym is a campaign that New York has put together. And what they've done is to mobilize and empower communities, organizations, pretty much anyone who has an establishment to offer their facilities or their spaces, or to use existing spaces that are state-owned and offer their time. So you may have a gym member, a gym owner, who decides that he will open his gym every Thursday for a senior to come and do a yoga class. Or we have persons who are from the community who will decide to host that yoga class at, say, an Emancipation Park, or what would look like an Emancipation Park. I believe in campaigning for this type of mobilization from the community, from organizations, from NGOs, from the nation on a whole, and that would then remove some of the limitations of the state providing all the resources and all the budgets, all the subsidies for these lifestyle activities and these social engagement programs that we currently need. So my recommendation is to establish and maintain activity, resource centers, community spaces, and also to campaign for mobilization and collaboration amongst the community and partnerships with National Council for Senior Citizens, NGOs, community-based organizations, and communities themselves. I'll also quickly touch on something that Professor Morris would have raised, the bridging generational gaps and cultural exchange. Once upon a time, everyone would gather at Mama's feet for story time, and we're way past that now. Our family structure has changed drastically, and much of our culture and identity is being lost due to the widening generational gaps. So we are pushing for facilitating meaningful mentorship opportunities between seniors and youth. Most likely, a lot of this will be through our curriculum, through our schools, through our community programs in schools. And of course include Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Ministry of Education and community groups to actively encourage and support programs for this critical transfer of cultural knowledge and traditional skills. Seniors can contribute immensely if given these opportunities. I do want to touch on safeguarding our seniors from abuse and neglect. A lot of our presentation, I believe this was one of the founding movements to have this act in place. The fact that abuse and neglect is prevalent in the country. I do recognize that we are talking about robust measures, we're talking about mandatory reporting, and we're talking about strong penalties. What I am really recommending, though, specifically, is what happens after those penalties are in place and those reporting measures are put in place. While we must have those in place, they are necessary. We have encountered cases of elder abuse in our community, and we have sought avenues for support, and we were directed to things like a hotline, which is not an unusual solution. It's necessary. However, recognizing that in many cases the offender is the caregiver, our questions were what happens to the senior after an offender is reported or penalized. The distress of that senior if the only source of care is reported, investigated, and penalized, but then may come back or remain in that same space with that victim. If the penalty is such that the offender still resides in the home, the environment could get worse, and the caregiver may take it out on the senior in a myriad of ways. So what we're advocating for is safe houses for seniors and provision of secure and supportive environments for victims. Of course, these would have clearly defined criteria for access. In some countries, there are short-term stays that are provided by churches, by non-profits, by NGOs, and even other seniors. As we know, there are many seniors who are aging in place, and they're the only ones in their 4 to 5 bedroom houses. What if we were to incentivize or be able to galvanize those providers, right, or those persons as providers for safe houses for victims of elder abuse? Beyond shelter, access to counseling, legal aid, medical care, and family reunification services, where appropriate, must also be integrated. I also wanted to touch quickly on medication mismanagement. Ideally, what we want is quality care access where seniors receive appropriate, safe, and necessary medications. This includes a multidisciplinary approach because as we age, our health issues are going to become more complex. And so we may have a specialist, we may be going to a GP, we may need to see a gynae, we may visit the health center for a specific health procedure. And the result is no one person is dedicated to reviewing cases in a way that prevents things like overprescription and drug conflicts. Whereas I know there are health providers or physicians who try to intervene and to also be able to assess as they go through cases it is a difficult thing to do, especially if you're a part of a system that is already overburdened. We experience issues, so our seniors experience issues of things like polypharmacy, which is common in older adults, especially with those with chronic conditions. And polypharmacy just refers to those, the taking of 5 or more medications simultaneously. My grandmother passed last year, and one of the things that I noticed before she passed was that she was taking up to 15 medications at a time. Is that justified? I'm not a doctor, I can't say. But I know that polypharmacy globally is looked at about 40%, globally, and I know it's underreported. And this is the fourth leading, it increases the risk of conditions like kidney problems, which is the 4th leading cause of death.
Can you repeat that term,
Polypharmacy.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That is rampant in our senior community. Many of our seniors are taking several drugs, and I as I said, I'm not a physician. I can't say whether or not it's clinically justified or not. There's actually appropriate and inappropriate polypharmacy. Appropriate polypharmacy, you could be taking more than 5 medications and it be clinically justified based on the complexity of your problems. But you also have inappropriate polypharmacy where it can include medications that are not indicated, dosed incorrectly, used for extended periods, and just not ended up that it's removed from your prescription. You just have a doctor filling up a prescription because it has been used, or cause adverse events. So our recommendations, and I have this bridge here, and I don't know if this is a regulatory body that is the Pharmacy Council, Ministry of Health, that can manage as a combination, but somebody needs to conduct periodic medication reviews for seniors, ensuring appropriateness, necessity, and safety of prescribed drugs. We can empower this regulatory body to actively intervene when identifying overprescription or conflicts, supported by clearer guidelines from regulatory bodies. I know this may be something that requires resources that are limited. So one of the things I considered was, hey, can we talk about, for instance, final year students, pharmacists, who have their practicum, can they red flag cases where they're seeing overprescription or conflicts? And the regulatory body provide ways to resolve those things. Preventing polypharmacy and medication management is a crucial focus because the benefits of taking medication must outweigh the personal harms, the potential harms. My apologies. And finally, this is the final point I wanted to raise when it comes on to financial security and valuing contributions. Many seniors face financial insecurity. We are all aware that while seniors are grateful pensioners, just the cost of living outweigh the pension amount that they receive on a monthly basis. So we're really trying to seek opportunities and creative ways for seniors to earn. So we would like support for seniors who are still competent and able to contribute economically, fostering financial independence and continued contributions to society. I witnessed Heart Trust providing recently digital literacy training, which is a great program and course to provide. We need more of those to be able to equip our seniors what they need to earn after retirement. We also want to talk a little bit about valuing senior expertise for national development. A lot of the gaps that we have, I believe seniors have the solutions for them. We need to recognize that seniors possess vast experience and and they have a treasure trove of knowledge. They're not just consumers, they are not burdens, they are active and significant contributors to this nation. Many seniors are the only ones qualified in their industry in Jamaica, in the region. Can we increase their involvement in national reform activities and consultations to solve issues of national importance? We're talking things like the talent shortages in education and health. Can we involve seniors more in solving some of our nation's problems? We should actively seek and integrate seniors' perspectives into policy formulation and solution development. In terms of addressing financial security, many seniors still work because they do not have a choice. And even if they wish to remain a part of the workforce in a contract or consultancy and part-time role, it is not commonplace, and there are not many flexible retirement solutions. Many companies are not on board with hiring a senior in any capacity, even if they are competent. In Europe, there are anti-discrimination laws against things like ageism in the workplace. The Australian government offers financial incentives, such as wage subsidies, to businesses that hire and retain workers aged 50 or over. Can we consider also incentivizing companies to encourage the provision of work optional opportunities for our seniors? There are very creative ways to provide income earning opportunities in 2025. For good company, one of our most recent partnerships is with a local talent agency. We recruit seniors from our community to be in paid TV and radio commercials and campaigns, so they earn extra income doing something new, exciting, and something short-term. These opportunities don't have to be provided directly by the state. As I mentioned, collaboration with NCSC, who we know has approximately over 30,000 seniors in their database. We can provide a structure where collaboration can happen with the private sector to provide opportunities for seniors, for work optional opportunities. I leave this with you. Just let's shift our perspectives as much as possible from seniors being only consumers instead of active and significant contributors to society. I just had a few testimonials there. I'll leave that up, but I will take any questions now.
Thank you so much. Senator Gale is first at bat.
Thank you. You know what jumped out at me? The polypharmacy and the mismanagement of medication. Mm-hmm. Something where, we lose sight of. And I recall representing the pharmacy group where the pharmacists will complain that, listen, we administer, we don't prescribe. Mm-hmm. And so the level of accountability now is my concern, because maybe at a later date you might want to give us some context in terms of accountability. Who is going to be monitoring this? Mm-hmm. The role of strengthening the powers and authority of the pharmacists, who may have to push back.
Right.
And as I've indicated, they don't prescribe, they administer. Mm-hmm. So is the level of accountability resting with those who, in the first instance, those who prescribe? Mm-hmm. Because I think this is a very critical area, but context is important. There are provision for the protection of the elderly, because the elderly just go to drug serve or go to the pharmacist and want to be administered. Anything you tell them, they go take it.
Right, yes.
And in understanding that they at that age, you are treating for them with multiple issues. Mm-hmm. And they just want to get better or feel better. Mm-hmm. So it would be good if you could detail at a later date an expansive approach that we could consider in treating with these measures for protection.
For sure. I definitely have ideas about that. I know the pharmacy, the reason I mentioned that's the Pharmacy Council, what would be the Pharmacy Council has been the body in other countries that I've seen, but they are, as you mentioned, the ones that hold others accountable. So it is going to be empowerment from a legal perspective, not only from just empowering with information or accountability. And one of the things that I've also seen is that the health center, because persons will fill prescriptions at the health center almost the same time they visit that doctor, there is a mandatory check at that health center if it is that prescription has run for X amount of months or many times. So it may just be at the point of the health center right now that we could look at, but it's a start, because I believe it is something that is underreported because we can't track it, and there is no one person overseeing that right now.
Thank you. Senator Longmore.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. And speaking as one of those who prescribe such, we refer to it within our sphere as the pill burden. We're conscious of it. And of course, that includes other medications. But we have to, it is not the burden, so to speak, on the pharmacists. At the end of the day, the pharmacists are going along with what is prescribed.
Right.
Significantly, what you find is that a lot of the elderly, because they don't have support at home, they don't have persons who are asking these probing questions on their behalf. And so, in terms of solution orientation, the checks and balances, periodic requirements may be where your head is at. Periodic review. Personally, in my practice, my adage is medications are my last resort, but sometimes they have to be my first choice.
Right.
Because also, as we heard from others in terms of the care of the elderly, the holistic presentation. So when you have an elderly person who is not physically being stimulated, who is not socially engaged, who is not mentally engaged, who is not spiritually engaged, you find that the dependency on a lot of these other pharmaceuticals become that much more. So it has to take, in a solution that you're probably seeking, there has to be a lot of considerations. And Chair, there are significant other policies and legislations in place that would apply to what it is that I think you're seeking.
Right.
Just to offer that, again, as someone who does part of the prescription.
I'll definitely take that point. Thank you, Senator Longmore. I will say I've recognized from the feedback that it is not necessarily, it's understood that when someone goes before that doctor, the doctor has to make certain decisions based on what information in front of them. And there's also the culture of, especially our seniors, there is this trust in the doctor to just, we are just going to take whatever you give us. So I do think there is an arm of this where, and this may be, further in the future, where we need to be educating them and loved ones a lot more. Right, because that's what we have to do right now. The how of it would have to be worked out, but I appreciate your feedback. Thanks.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Mackenzie. Do we have any other questions from members online? You've certainly given us quite a bit of meat. Senator Longmore?
Just another notation. I appreciate, Ms. Mackenzie, the inclusion in your structure here in some of the strategies, the inclusion of the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, Sports, and such, yes, in your proposal for enacting some of this, because a lot of times we underestimate the role of the cultural input, yes, in how we care. Yes. And so I just wanted to highlight that, and as the legislative solutions, that is a possible agency too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for preparing this presentation. I suspect you will hear your name called a bit when we sit to deliberate on the specific proposals. But I want to thank you very much. The committee is certainly grateful to the contribution you have made this morning. Thank you so much. Members, I am at 12:07. I'm going to now invite Professor Eldemaya Shearer and, pardon? I'm going to invite Professor Eldemaya Shearer and the Mona Aging and Wellness team to make their presentation. and for the purposes of our logistics, if I could invite them just to switch seats, switch locations with Mrs. Bauer and Ms. Mackenzie, just to make it a little easier for our persons to... No, they're fine there? Okay. Okay. All right. The audience have normally asked me to move them down. Okay. All right. So we'll take you there, huh? All right. Prof. Elder Shera, welcome. Please, you are so well known to everyone, but for the benefit of the public, introduce yourself and the team. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for inviting us to be here. Thanks also to Senator Floyd for bringing up this point, and I will make the point later. You will understand why I'm thanking him. Also, I want to thank Mrs. Beckford as well. I'll come into that because, as was said, this was really seamless in coming here, right down to breaking slides for TV and all of that. So I have Ms. Watkins, who is the administrator, who did that breaking of the slides in the middle of the night. Dr. Tyndale, the executive director of Mona Aging and Wellness. Dr. Davis, who is a member. You all are familiar with Ms. Latty because she's part of our team. We are multidisciplinary. So, we're hurrying, and it's getting there now. We finally have a solution. Caregiving is a challenge in this country and finding them. So we have Ms. Latty, and we have our other members that are online. The presentation, we're not up yet. We need permission to share.
Permission to share the screen.
Just share your screen. Is it requiring you to?
It's not allowing me to.
It requires permission.
Yeah. IT need to give us permission. All right, in the interest of time, I'll start.
I need for the IT department to grant permission to share the screen, please.
Bring it up so I can start. How will we know when you get permission?
I crave your indulgence, Professor Shera.
Go back. Not coming up yet, Chair. Do you want me to start going through them? Because I have it in front of me, and I think members have copies in the interest of time.
Professor Elder Shera, while I would proceed with that, I'm expecting the IT personnel to appear momentarily, but we have colleague members online, and these meetings are broadcast to the public
so
on the Public Broadcasting Corporation. Yes. Again.
It's not allowing us to share. Yeah, but she doesn't know where we are. I was responding to.
Well, are we having joy now? Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. I appreciate that. Yes, we can proceed now, Prof.
Very much.
Pull your mic a little down to you.
Down?
Yes, there you
okay.
go.
What am I moving with? Thank you very much, Chair and members. You will notice that this bears no relationship to my original submission, which was on the rights, because I think that rights issue in the submissions have been very well articulated, and Ms. Latti is here to vouch that. We heard of it. So I thought, since you're coming, have had months now of presentations, that a context might be helpful. Now I have to find. So aging is a process, and I think that's important because much of what's going to happen and what's going to come in even to the legislation is that aging doesn't start at 60, the official age of the Vienna Declaration in 1982, at which Jamaica was present. We have been present at every international meeting since 1982. So 60, we're still 60. It has not been changed by the international bodies, and therefore we will not change, although WHO is proposing 65. But it's a process of change, and therefore things that come before, such as children, adults, is all going to impact it. And as has come up this morning, it's not simply one activity. Dr. Longmore, the spiritual, is there. There are many components of aging, and I thought it was important to put this up because we are talking about legislation, and you may in fact need several pieces of legislation coming out of this committee, because it may not be possible for one piece of legislation to address it. We have the physical, much has been said about that. Ministry of Health made their presentation, and some of what has been discussed here this morning is in the pipeline in the Ministry of Health in terms of providing care for older people. The psychological, the economic, and the spiritual and social. We've heard a lot about social. I'm therefore not going to spend a lot of time. You have also mentioned, Chair, very appropriately, that there is legislation and there's programs and there's policies. I'm a little disappointed in the presentations, particularly today and some of the others, that very little seems to be known about the work of the National Council for Senior Citizens, which is across the island, with clubs and a lot of the activities spoken about here today available in communities. But I put this up because it highlights what you're going to need in terms of the legislation. I see a question, Dr. Longmore. And it was presented about the 2,000 odd clubs across the island and everything. I listened to that presentation and didn't hear it. So there is a lot that's going on, and I think it's important in coming to a decision about the legislation that there be awareness of the fine details needed of what the National Council provides. This slide is to focus on the fact that there are many things that are going to go into programs that will not need legislation. Jamaica is clearly in the final stage of the demographic transition. I have put up this slide because there has been much discussion. The point I wanted to make here is that not only are we having increased numbers of older people, life expectancy according to the UN at age 60 is in fact 20 to 25 years. So if you get to 60 and you've avoided the motor vehicle accidents and all of that, you are likely to live 20 to 25 years. So we are talking about a group that's close to 400,000 now, on its way to 500,000, and the fastest age group, growing age group in that number is the over 80. So we are on the cusp of a number of people particularly needing long-term care, and I'll visit it. The 0 to 14 is important when we see the drop and the continued drop, because it raises the question, who is going to provide care? In the study that we did in 2011, half of the children were actually abroad. When you ask who's your nearest relative, they will tell you my brother or my sister. How do you communicate? It's no longer across the fence at the backyard. It's now by phone and WhatsApp. So they are not available for caregiving. Something that Ms. Latty raised, something that's going to keep coming up. I have put up the diagrams. The figures are not accurate. They're short about 50,000 because, of course, we don't have census data yet. So everything is projections. It, however, tells the story of where we're going. Many of you in this room today will be at the diagram to the right, to my right, where the bulge is at the top, because you will, in fact, it's 25 years. We have people in here who will still be alive. So the challenge, because it's not a problem, living long is not a problem. It's a challenge for some, is that we have this growing elderly population, older people population. We do have our international guidelines. We have managed to sign many conventions. As we have gone along, I said we participated in every meeting. We have, as Senator Floyd said, not signed the Convention on the Rights of Older People. I participated in the first meeting in Brazil 15 years ago. We have not yet signed it, and we keep bringing up the rights issue, but we have been hesitant. There are clauses in it, let me tell you why. We know the reason for the hesitancy. No Caribbean country until recently had signed. Belize, in fact, signed it 2 months ago. It has been signed by all the Latin American countries. Yeah. As a member state, we follow WHO, and therefore it would be difficult to change the definitions of young, elderly, old, elderly, middle, until WHO changes them, because we do follow those guidelines. The Madrid Plan of Action, and I was actually there for 202, is a global policy framework that we still follow, that addresses the challenges and stresses the opportunities. This meeting actually concentrated on developing countries, and the plan focuses on 3 priority areas, which have come out in the presentations over the past few weeks. Older persons and development. We do point out that older people do pay property tax, electricity, telephone, and therefore do contribute to development and to GDP, although we are the dependent population. Advancing health and well-being is important, and ensuring enabling and supportive environments. I'm not going to spend any time on the environments. The National Council for Senior Citizens at the time strongly supported the Disabilities Policy and Act, because many of the provisions in that act, the ramps, the bathroom doors, are also what it makes supportive environments for older people. And therefore we lean on that. The Madrid Plan encourages governments and specifies the very important role of civil society, which again has come out in this, to implement policies and programs. The reviews show, and they're 5-year reviews, we're sort of in the middle. There are many things we have not done. There are many things that we have done. And of course, the United Principles for Older Persons actually started in 1991. When Senator Floyd was talking about ancestry, I reflected back on 1999, the International Year of Older People. Again, we participated, I was the focal point. And I spoke for then Minister Simpson Miller at the time. All of what was being said, even the intergen collaboration was actually a theme of 1999. And perhaps we should, in fact, revisit some of this ancestral stuff because it's there. So the group, the United Principles, which will have to come through any legislation, is about independence, participation, care, self-fulfillment, and dignity. Senator Longmore, many of us older people will not allow anybody to review our drugs. We are fiercely independent, and we hide them. So aging is cross-cutting, as has come out in many of the presentations. The economy and finance. Now, the ILO has a lot of work on older workers, going back again to 95, and will speak. As you consider legislation, you may want to review some of these because there are very good points. The labor force structure is changing. The median age of our population is now into the 30s at 32. Therefore, workers, Senator Gale, are getting older. And we have to look at that. What are we going to do about retraining, etc.? Pension is a big issue. Under services and needs, there are the health care requirements, social care, transport. May I point out that we've talked a lot today about transport. Cost is one thing. No older person with arthritis or surgery can maneuver the steps of our buses. So we can go as basic as that. Persons with disabilities, especially blindness, have a lot of problems on the buses, and especially if there's a problem. And we had some information on a fire on a bus and the blind person left behind. So we have to think about that. Long-term care, end-of-life care. And as we talk about that, vision is a #1 problem for older people, so it's not persons just with disabilities. We talk about it as society and the individual, inclusion in the digital age. Much is being said now about digital transformation. I make a plea for the older persons here, because digital transformation is two-way. Not all older persons are digitally literate or want to be. We have issues with banks, ATM machines, and we are told, oh, let your grandchild do it. Let somebody else do it. No, I do not want my grandchild to know how much is in my bank account. Persons are upset that they no longer go to the post office for their NIS because that's their social activity for the month. So I beg, I plead, that as we spend the entire day there. One man told me all he needs is patty money to go and pick up his pension because he's not coming home for 6 hours. So I beg that as the youngsters in our society, and at my age I can call anybody under 60 youngsters. Yes, Gramps. So please remember that not all of us want to go into the digital age. Please remember the rural people. The life certificate now comes on your phone. How do you print it in Backaway, OA, up in a Trelawney bush to get the signature? So let us remember that you may have to do this gradually and accommodate the dinosaurs, because we exist. Well-being issues, the intergen, and I've mentioned all of this in the interest of time. So, where are the gaps? We've had many gaps, so these are the gaps from MAWC's perspective. Not all rights are protected, and that has been clear from the presentations. The discrimination, the ageism, long-term care, there are many rights not protected. Through no fault of the formers of the UN Convention on the Rights in 1948, because life expectancy then was 56, and we had no old people to think about. Therefore, this has progressed over time, that the issues around aging, if you think back to some of the slides, and the absence of appropriate legislation. Accessibility and affordability are important. We had somebody come for a COVID vaccine. The taxi fare from Portland, because they could not manage, was in fact $10,000 each way. So yes, the vaccine is available, it is free. Do you have that amount of money to come for it? We hear stories like that of having to go to KPH. So let us look at transport not simply in the availability of a bus or a car, but the cost. And healthcare is free, but the cost to get there is not free. We have workforce shortages, as Ms. Latti brought out very succinctly, the insufficient trained caregivers, and as I showed in the declining 0 to 14 population, more and more caregivers are going to be needed from the general population. Healthcare and social professionals are all in shortage. Quality of care has been raised by others, raised this morning. The variability in quality of care. Some services don't have adequate standards. I know NTVET now has a set of standards for practical nurses, but where is the monitoring of all of this? In addition, we need integrated programs. What we have now is vertical programs. And it came up this morning about inadequate age-friendly facilities. Something as simple as a room door in a facility, in a public facility, opening out, because the wheelchair cannot go in if the door is in. Never thought of it till somebody pointed it out. So we need to have people sensitive to the needs of older people. Stigma and abuse come up. There are many persons that complain they will go to a facility, a doctor, but it's your age. Pain is not due to age. Pain is due to something wrong. Pain is due to something being wrong. So we need a public education program on stigma and abuse and the whole issues around caregiver burden. If you are looking after somebody 24/7, you're going to need a break. The National Policy for Senior Citizens from 1997 was revised recently. Interestingly, in the 1997 version, it did speak to the need for legal requirements. Nothing got done. And I'm not sure, I don't see it in this, but I haven't read it, the current version. So there's a recognition of the importance of legislation. Congratulations to this committee for taking it forward. A little late, but better late than never. What exists? We have lots of things, and somebody mentioned it this morning. There's the Nursing Home Act, which I think Ms. Latti brought up, and clearly needs revision. Clearly it also needs supporting staff. 6 people cannot monitor the country. Offenses Against the Person Act, Domestic Violence Act, there is the Disability Act, the Sexual Offense Act, and the Bank of Jamaica Act. And you will soon see why I have listed these out. So, the Maintenance Act and the Poor Relief Act, yes, could be there as well. So, I have come to the suggestions for areas needing legislation, Chair, and I'm going to focus this on the suggestions that have been made, and I have learned, thanks to you and others that have tried to get me to recognize legislation versus program. I hope that what I'm about to do, with the disclaimer that I am a doctor, not a lawyer. Therefore, I see some things differently in terms of protecting. But I have, Mona Aging and Wellness has suggestions in 3 areas. The rights, clearly, long-term care, and abuse and violence. So we know the human rights principles. I don't have to tell anybody that here. Autonomy, though, I want to... Autonomy is important. Let us recognize that older people, it's not once a man, twice a child, because at 72, I have a lifetime of experience and nothing wrong here. So none of you can tell me what to do. You may suggest something and I process it. So we need to recognize the importance of autonomy and choice. Except, of course, for those with mental impairments. We know, we have Jamaican data, that we are talking about under 10% of our population. By the time you get to 80, it is between 30 and 40. But we are talking about approximately 85 to 90% who can make a decision. We also know that the population that we are talking about is physically able as well. We saw quite an increase.
Can I interrupt you 1 second, just for some clarification on those numbers? The 10% is 10% of the entire population?
No, the over 60.
Over 60, thank you.
The over 60. And kudos to Ministry of Health who actually funded that research, NHF. So, where was I? The other thing I wanted to make the point, because I will come to the long-term care and the community element of it. When we did the 89 study, 78% of the older population was well and about, etc. Yes, you need a walker, yes, you need a thing, but you still can move. Function is critical. Function is what defines what you can do as an older person.
Madam Chair.
One moment. Senator Morris?
Yes, Madam Chair. Pardon me for making an intervention, you see? And pardon me if I sound any bias here. But we are up with an excellent presentation from the quintessential expert on the field in the Caribbean. And I know that we have a time factor on our hands. So as to not to rush Prof in her presentation. Can we allow her to come complete and also to come back to have further dialogue with us? Because this is rich stuff that is here, and I pick up that she is rushing through her presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Morris, I thank you for that intervention, and Prof was nodding. I don't know if you could see her as you made that proposal. And clearly you have a lot of credit because she was nodding even before you finished speaking. And so I'm looking around at my members. I see no objections, and that very enthusiastic nod tells me that she would be quite willing, and that the Mona Aging and Wellness Group would be quite willing. And we would also love to have them back. I would say, though,
she has been my doctor for over 20 years, so I know her very well.
I will say that I had asked the Parliament to ensure that there was no other committee meeting. There's sometimes one that starts at 12 after hours today. So we have a little bit of flexibility, not too much, because the House, of course, will be meeting at 2. So, Prof, please continue.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator Floyd. I will slow down then, in the interest of slowing, since we're at the suggestions, and I'm getting messages over here to slow down. So, I think everybody knows that I am passionate about the rights of older people. And that is something that we have been trying for. I think I found a way for the committee, because in November of 2024, the UN commission that has been looking at the rights over the last few years recognized that getting the convention, whether ours or the European, was not going to make it. So they brought the open-ended group work to an end and endorsed it, but said that countries could now, as long as they did something, go ahead with trying to find ways to protect the rights of older people in their country without signing on to all of the other conventions. It is against this background that I would like to, Mona Aging and Wellness, would like to suggest that, having reviewed the Disabilities Act, we propose an Older Persons Act. The Act would ensure the dignity, well-being, and quality of life of older persons, to cover issues including but not limited to the right to access health and social services, to reduce discrimination, and to reduce ageism. The Act would then promote individual autonomy, giving older persons the right to decision-making, etc., which is, of course, related to family discussions. Freedom of choice, and this is going to become increasingly important as the chronic disease battle is waged, and especially among those 80 and older persons, the freedom of choice, as long as they are mentally competent. I was involved in one last night. The older person said, stop. The children wanted to continue with the interventions. And the older person said, enough is enough. And providing, this is while we provide the protection for physically or mentally impaired older persons. Doing a Bill of Rights, like the Disability Act, would also ensure effective participation, as was raised, of older persons in all activities of life. May I point out they love voting? And in the 2011 study, 78% of them voted. So they do participate in life, and as I have already said, they pay a lot of bills. They prevent and prohibit ageism and discrimination. The national policy for senior citizens, as we look at the possibility, as the committee looks at the possibility, would then be reviewed in the policy that we now have. If there are any rights issues in it that need to be included. Other areas could be included in the Rights Act, legal guardianship. Now, this would be Dr. Longmore's area, where we are looking at the mental questions of mental competency. But also this comes in for stroke and some of the neurodegenerative diseases where persons can't write, etc. living wills, and the health power of attorney, which is not done here. But I have 2 patients out of New York, and the children actually have power of attorney just for health thing, and I think this is something we could look at.
Before you move on to your next slide, can I just ask you to just go back and give us a little bit of perspective on the ageism issues that older persons are facing and have faced from your breadth of knowledge?
From my breadth of knowledge, you see it sometimes in accessing healthcare. If somebody is in an A&E department, the younger person is going to get the bed before the older person. These sort of things. We saw it during COVID, not here, but we certainly saw it abroad. You see it, well, it's more anecdotal, but we get it in our focus groups where people they can't rush. You see it during times of disaster as well, where the lines and older people are at the back of the line and they're not pushing up to the front, that sort of thing. And you see it in attitudes, where they want to access a service, particularly a social service or a health service, and they're told they're old. A lot of our benefits in Social Security actually have age limits, like the rehab grants. And if you take into consideration what was raised this morning, that some older persons may want to do something, they're not going to qualify for a rehab grant. Housing Trust actually has an older age. Senator, you would know, but it's, suppose somebody wanted to add the granny room, as it's called, so that the older person could be independent. The older person doesn't qualify for the grant. And a lot of the younger people have already had a grant. 78% of the older persons in our study owned the house. So they are the primary house owner, but they haven't fixed a roof. We're still seeing tarpaulins on roofs if you fly over Jamaica, you know. And so it needs a more in-depth study, but that gives you a gist of it, Chair. So, what I have heard come up during your sessions, and I have listened to a lot of them, is, so how would you do this? So again, I borrowed from the Disability Act, and I liked the idea of Mona Aging and Wellness, liked the idea of the tribunal, which could do the monitoring. Yes, you've had suggestions about commissions and things, but I think that may be down the road. But you could have if you had the Older Persons Act, then you could have the Older Persons Tribunal, which I think could be headed by an older person's advocate. That would be the new position. But have persons on it, such as the chair of the National Council for Senior Citizens, certainly a representative of older people themselves, social workers, healthcare. This would have to be fleshed out, but just to give you an idea. And there could be a monitoring role for implementation by this tribunal, where people could report ageism, discrimination, the various things that have come up here as to what needs to be done. This body, this advocate, could be the person or the office, clearly not a one person, but it'd have to be an office where people could make complaints to.
Here?
Senator Morris.
Just to make a slight intervention here, Prof. You know, Prof, just to point out that the Disability Rights Tribunal that is configured in the Disabilities Act have a slightly different mandate in that it is designed specifically to hear cases, reference as it relates to discrimination against persons with disabilities. So it operates and functions like the IDT, Industrial Dispute Tribunal. So it is a quasi-judicial body that has been established to hear cases of discrimination against persons with disabilities. But I think what you would want to see is something akin to Older Persons Commission or something like that, where they would monitor the overall implementation of the legislation.
I stand to be guided. Thank you, Senator Morris. And as I said, I'm a doctor. So I'm going to hide behind the fact that the lawyers will thresh this out.
Distinguished professor.
Thank you.
That intervention Senator Morris has just made, we have had quite a bit of discussion in this committee in interacting with presenters on the issue of that body that is the protective / advocate for older persons. We've had conversations about the setup of the children's advocate. And the children's advocate is, in the truest form of the word, an advocate. So she represents children in court. She stands in to watch proceedings that children are involved in, to ensure that their rights are being protected, observed. She intervenes in matters where children's rights issues come up as well. And the question is, and we would ask Mona Aging and Wellness to give some thought to this, because as Senator Morris pointed out, the suggestion of this tribunal in terms of monitoring implementation of policy and the actionable programs that the state has said older persons have a right to access is a whole body of work all on its own. But the question of older persons, as Mrs. Bowers was suggesting in her submission, someone who is being taken advantage of, who has no ability to enforce his or her own rights, is this body the body who can deal with that? This body you're suggesting, and I'm not asking you to answer no, since you're going to come back and visit with us.
And I couldn't answer no, because I have to take it back to the team to discuss.
Very well. But for those matters, the matters where we need, older persons need someone to stand in for them in a legal role, almost like a power of attorney, which they may not be in a position to grant. They may not be in a position to grant that power, but they need the support, someone who has the authority, whether statutorily or constitutionally, whatever the grounding is. I would ask Mona Aging and Wellness to give that some thought for us. We'd love to hear what you see the scholarship on that saying, and any suggestions you might have when next you come back. And I'm going to yield and ask you to continue, Prof. Shearer.
I'm being advised that we would look at it. You notice it came forward. So I'm being advised how we will do it. Thank you, Chair.
Very well. Thank you. Continue, please.
So it is clear from most of the submissions that, and it certainly is a rights issue, that the time has come for a long-term care act. Please notice I'm not saying a nursing home act. Long-term care, health and social services to ensure persons at risk of declining or with physical and mental capacity can maintain a level of functional ability consistent with rights and fundamental freedoms. Inherent in this is the fact that it would begin with community programs and would involve civil society. It's currently not universally available, especially in rural areas. Getting somebody to come in and to bathe somebody or to sit with them for 3 hours hasn't like one used to do it. It's amazing. As I went through this, so much of it used to be. So we could revisit that. When it's available, it's often fragmented, relying on middle-aged females as unpaid labor. And Ms. Latty brought this out in her submission. Middle-aged because these are females, often with families of their own, often midlife, menopause, hypertension, and are stressed. And they're not paid. So when they're now doing all of this, and I think all of us know of at least one family member that has just given up themselves totally to looking after a family member. So no income coming in, no nothing. And this is something we seriously need to look at. And in addition, availability often depends on what you can afford. $5,000 to $10,000 a day for a practicum nurse to come in, etc. So we need a long-term care act. Caregiving can reduce a family member's ability to earn, as I said, and it can lead to families having to manage a crisis versus supporting relationships. There's a World Bank study in which we're included that you will be, carrying on right here. The poverty line is down here. You have an illness in an older person, needs a CAT scan, etc., and the family though dips below the poverty line because most of us don't want to say we can't do something to save the family member. And so there are real issues around this. So long-term care legislation is a starting point for formulation of strategies and the map. It would provide the foundation to establish governance. So it is a legislative matter, Chair, because how you govern this has to be in place, the financing options, the workforce. It could secure provisions for those that need it and ensure care and rights of both the older person and the caregiver. We must also protect the rights of the caregiver. And it can be a driver of job creation. So there is something in here for everybody as we look at the long-term care. It will provide, or it could, a level of safe, appropriate, accessible, and affordable long-term care along the continuum. So yes, we have residential care over here, palliative care, respite care, but there's a step before to promote the maintenance of function and prevent the breakdown of the person so that they need institutional care. So it could be going in every day, twice a week, to ensure, to clean out the fridge, to throw away the old food, to do the dressings, etc. And it would cover informal family, community, and finally residential care. When I come back, I can give you the more of that. Home-based care, as I said, residential. The Nursing Home Act clearly needs revisions. Support, and it would also include the support for caregivers, including how they report abuses, whether financial or whatnot, and how older people could also report problems with the long term. I'm not crossing over into abuse. So our thoughts on elder abuse. Legislation is clearly needed. We have, although we don't have statistics, every presentation so far to date has mentioned elder abuse. We cannot ignore it. As a country, we cannot ignore it. However, the medical dictionary defines it as harmful actions towards older people, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional and psychological, which we can get from other forms of abuse, the definitions such as child abuse. However, the one that we keep hearing about and which will not be covered by any medical dictionary is the financial exploitation of older people. We don't have a universal definition, but it is a reportable offense. A reportable offense to who? And we mentioned culture several times. Old people are not reporting their children. It's very simple. They're not going to the police station, I promise you. One lady said to me, because she needed chemotherapy and things, and it wasn't going right. And when we said, well, report it, she said, and the next time the next breast is affected, and they deny me treatment? So older people are afraid, and we have to break that down. And we have to have a system that makes them comfortable in saying, I am being abused, I need help. It's covered by the Offences Against the Person Act, which is very broad and lacks specific provisions. There are regional definitions. ECLAC has done a lot of work on this in the region, and Dr. Tyndale is the one who has been representing MAWC there. But we have no reporting and documentation system locally. To craft such legislation, and Madam Chair, you're too young, I was involved in the crafting of the child abuse legislation way back in the 80s. It was a long process. It took 4 to 5 years. There was a task force set up with pediatricians, myself representing public health, and Dennis Morrison. I remember Dennis Morrison. The then Attorney General told us we were challenging the very fundamentals of British law. Today we have a Child Abuse Act, Chair. There is no reason we cannot have an Elder Abuse Act. It is, however, going to take work and time. It would cover the definitions, the system, the protection, and I liked the suggestion this morning of safe houses. Where do you put somebody? Because I own the house, I'm reporting her who is looking after me, and I must go back to this same house with this person in it, but it's my house, remember. So there's a lot. For financial exploitation, we need to think of the protection of assets and legal guardianship. We are therefore suggesting, Madam Chair, committee members, that while pursuing that, while you all make the recommendation for somebody, the National Council, whoever, to set up the task force, we are suggesting in the interim that you look at the existing laws covering violence, etc., whether the Domestic Violence Act, the Offences Against the Person Act, and of course the Banking Act. As you go through these laws, there are many times that age is in it. I am suggesting you add now age over 60, and that we look at adding a clause while the work on the legislation is being done. And in summary, the aging of Jamaica's population requires definitive action. We've had a national council, i.e. recognition of the importance, since 1976. Madam Chair, we have a long track record internationally of addressing the issues of older people across all political boundaries and sides. So it is time to go to that final step where we have the legislation. The current provisions are helpful, but do not totally appropriately meet the needs. And existing legislation should be improved and new rights issues legislation created. And I thank you.
Prof. Shearer, as usual, you have left all of us with, I don't know if we know where to start, so I'm very glad that Senator Morris suggested your return. I was just making a note as you were speaking when you went back to the safe house suggestion, and I was just penning a note. Wondering whether or not our security services, not the police, but our security services, if any of the companies offer alert services directed at older persons living alone in particular, as opposed to households that have monitoring or, what do you call them?
Chair, I have a...
Yes, panic.
I have a panic button.
Right.
I have a panic button because, by the way, I'm one of the ones, and a lot of us are this way, who choose to live alone quite happily. Yes. I don't want anybody in my space.
Yes.
And they say that's what I mean about the independence of older people.
Right.
I see Senator Gale smiling, and he knows why. They did try to move me 24 years ago. So some of us actually want to be alone, but you do have fears. Suppose you fall. Suppose anything happens. And of course, you lock up the place tighter than chip. Every padlock have a key, and nobody has the key but you down on the ground or in the bath or something. So yes, the panic buttons, and maybe that's a good suggestion. We could ask them to make it at a discount or something. And they're very good.
Yes.
They're very good in terms of response. But of course, if they ring you, you can't get up from the floor or wherever you are to go and answer the phone.
Right.
Madam Chair?
Senator Morris, can I ask Senator Gale, who was
okay, yeah, go ahead.
Senator Gale, then Longmore, then Senator Morris.
Thank you. You know, Professor Shearer, I don't even know where to start. Because I'm just feeling that I've been part of a classroom. And I'm wondering, when is the next class? You know, somebody I knew would be very proud of you today. The Most Honorable Hugh Lawson Shearer, who was an advocate in, you know, the elderly and for the rights. So here we were looking at a particular legislation, and what you would have pointed out to us now is that we must go look at a plethora of other legislations. And I recall sitting in this very chamber reviewing the Banking Act for the modernized central bank that never take into consideration anything about this. I'm happy that you mentioned the tribunal and seeing how that tribunal can be fleshed out, because you're quite correct. The elderly not going to report anything to no police station or walk up to any police step. But they want a repository that is going to treat with them. And I'm looking at how you have proposed the outlook of that tribunal with the respective kind of representation and the advocacy. And I think it's something that we need to examine. But what I would urge, Madam Chair, is that, we told Ms. Latiba there that we couldn't do this without her. And we see the collaboration taking place. We are going to need your input in this long-term pursuance, the long-term care legislation that you spoke about, because it's different from just the protection, but more on the provisional side of continuity. So, Chair, we outside of coming up with a legislation, maybe the work of this committee is going to be futuristic in nature, because we are going to have to continue to work these things out and in a more expansive nature. But you're going to have to come back, because I have some questions in terms of some of the proposals that you have made that needs fleshing out. But I thank you for the lesson learned today.
Thank you, Senator Gill. Senator Longmore.
To Senator Morris.
Thank you. Senator Morris.
Yes, Madam Chair, thanks very much, Senator Longmore. I am very much...
That's wishful thinking, Senator Morris, but go ahead. We came a long time.
Hello?
Go ahead, Senator Morris, go ahead.
Okay, yes. I wanted to highlight something that Prof. Shearer mentioned, right? And that was about the cultural practice of the senior citizens to go to the post office and to go to the banks, and their insistence at wanting to continue with that practice. And I believe that, Madam Chair, we have to make sure that in anything that we are doing where legislation is concerned, this issue is taken into consideration. And that is why the other day I made it clear that we have to ensure that these spaces, the post offices and the banks, are equipped with adequate bathroom facilities to accommodate our senior citizens. I mean, when I go to the banks in Ligani, I don't see them, except probably NCB, in Ligani. That's the only bank that I would have seen having a bathroom facility for its customers, right? But this is something that must be standard now in light of the projections for massive growth in the senior citizens population. And Prof. Shearer, I am going to be giving a particular eye on this in any legislation that we prepare, because I understand the importance of these senior citizens wanting to live their life and to get rid of the boredom, to get rid of the loneliness, wanting to go out and see their peers, on a continuous basis. So, I just wanted to highlight that issue from your presentation. And again, I'm looking forward to part two.
Thank you, Senator Morris. Prof. Cheryl. You wanted to respond, Prof.
Just
Cheryl?
to say thank you.
Okay. Thank you, and we are thanking you and the team very much for today. We have a lot to sift through. There are lots of questions I know members have crafted, and questions that will come again as we look back at the meat of the presentation and even go over some of the parts that you were trying to get through quickly for us. Senator Longmore.
Thank you, Chair. And let me, of course, thank Professor Eldemeyer Scherer, who is here. I know Dad also is proud. And yes, I stood at her feet with my thesis too, so it would go far away too.
So you would understand why I put in the middle-aged women. Well, you know what I was talking to.
Let me live in my delusions. All right, so again, there are one or two things, and I look forward to when we come back. It's a lot to digest. I wanted to kind of pick your brain around, and you mentioned it, the Madrid International Plan for Action for Aging. When you highlighted the 3 areas there, I didn't see anything specifically around end-of-life planning and transition planning, but I saw where you included it around the suggestion of the areas needing legislation. I would like to get a little bit more insight into the process, the thinking that might be necessary, because it's so very interesting, which is transition planning and so forth. And in addition to that, or in continuity of that, the concept of assisted suicide. It is something that is becoming more apparent. It is becoming more in our awareness. And I just wondered what the perspective might be, especially with your collaboration with the international communities around such. Just wanted to also add that, we spoke, Chair, you had asked around ageism, and we sometimes in the push, and I think, Professor, you hinted at it, where there's almost a systematic ageism that is happening, where the push to the technology, the push to have to move to this type of application and this type of awareness, it's almost like persons are at a certain age are being forced. They don't have the option to choose of otherwise. If you have a problem with the bank now and you need to contact customer service, it is not that you can go into the bank and you have to be calling online, speaking to a foreign agency to resolve your issue that is so very critical to your existence now. So the systematic aging. And lastly, just to really emphasize, I think the Maintenance Act, I think is really very critical to some of the issues that you mentioned, and to also probably put that in the noggin and process around. Oh, and lastly, Chair, when I mentioned before my past comments, once a man, twice a child, it was especially around the cognitive development and the parallel possible cognitive impairments. In no way the respect I always say you always respect age and experience, but it is the level of protection that we may need to be given to persons when they are particularly vulnerable because of natural and also other mechanisms that may lead to their impairment. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lamore. And I think also to take that, especially in the early stages, and this would not be for legislation, we clearly need public education because the power of suggestion. I have a case where the person wouldn't bathe, and the caregiver found out that they didn't like cold water. So each morning when they wanted him to bathe, they came in and said, the hot water soon finish, And they darted into the bath. Mm-hmm. So they weren't telling him what to do. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think a public education program on understanding older people has to parallel any introduction of legislation.
Yes.
Thank you for that bit, because the other thing that I omitted to mention just now is the significant role, as you know, of the community, and I've mentioned it before, the community teams, the community mental health teams that would branch and integrate a lot of what was mentioned.
And Chair, sorry to prolong, but Dr. Longmore was on. It's what was interesting. We did a session on Sunday night, and we were hauled over the coals because we've been doing community health aides training, and we weren't including the psychiatric aides in the community, and we were asked why weren't we including them. We will never make that mistake again. But it goes to the integration, and I have it here, of health and social. We have all these community groups, church groups, and we need to make sure we reach out to them as well as to the formal health system.
Yes, thank you very much. I know the CMO was on earlier, and I think perhaps what we will do, there's some concerns and comments that were made today. If perhaps we could just collate those and pass those to her, to the Ministry of Health, to see if there's anything that they want to clarify or opine on at the next meeting. Colleagues, thank you very much. We are really against the clock because the House is to meet at 2, and our parliamentary staff needs to get the House, the chambers prepared. Prof. Sherry, your last words, please.
Chair, a number of you have said that you have things that you'd like us to address. Would it be possible for them to send them to you, and you just send me the areas so we can come properly prepared the next time?
We certainly can. We certainly can. So members, just by that question, I ask you just to submit to the committee clerk the questions that you have, the follow-up questions, so she can collate them into a single document for the Mona Aging and Wellness team. I want to thank all those who have presented today. I thank you all for coming and for taking the time to do the work necessary to prepare for this kind of a hearing. It is very helpful to us, and we can't do this without your participation and your substantive and significant participation. So we really thank you for that. I thank the parliamentary team, as usual, for their insights as well. And so many others have thanked her. I thank her every meeting. I'm going to keep on thanking her every meeting because she puts up with me, she looks after me as chair, and she makes sure that this committee has what it needs to do, the work it needs to do. And that's our committee clerk, Mrs. Rosemary Douglas Beckford. So thank you, Mrs. Beckford. I heard the guests thanking you as well. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 10th. We had some discussions before with the committee clerk and the team in the parliament about having someone address the committee on some of the legal issues, the medical legal issues that have arisen from the submissions. For example, the very durable wills and health powers of attorney that Prof referenced and others have referenced before. Is the committee minded to have that kind of input? We had invited, I believe, the Jamaica Bar Association, but we have not heard from them. But there are some family and family attorneys who may have the competence to address us. So we will round robin some names and ask the committee to take a look and let us know what they think. I think someone with the expertise in that area, given the submissions we've had, would be helpful to us at this point. Yeah. There is also, we have, I think, 2 other persons coming for submissions on the next occasion. So we'll confirm those, and Prof, we will be glad to have you back to answer the follow-up questions. Thank you all. Thank you for coming, and thank you to the parliamentary team again. This meeting is now adjourned on the motion of Senator Longmore, seconded by Senator Gale.
Jamaicans, practice proper disposal of garbage, and if items can be reused, recycle them. We all have a part to play in protecting our environment from pollution. We are building Jamaica.
Had fun.
Zoom in on the nutrition facts. It there in the table on the side or the back. If you check out the servings, just do the maths. Not taking too much, finger below the facts. Zoom in on the nutrition facts. It there in the table on the side or the back. Take note of the sodium, the sugars and the fats. 5% or less in the on the right track. You for zoom in on the nutrition facts. It there in the table on the side or the back. Vitamins, minerals and fiber to 20% and more that good for you. You for zoom in, check the nutrition facts. You for zoom in, check the nutrition facts. You for zoom in, check the nutrition facts. Less sugar, less salt intake and less fat. You for zoom in.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Jamaica Moves, the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, the National Health Fund, and Japan.
Today, we can report 2 consecutive years of reduction in major crimes and murders, with a significant reduction of almost 20% in murders for 2024.
Between January 2022 and January 2025, we have reduced murders by 51%, and January 2025 had the lowest monthly murder count since September 2014.
Our efforts have also resulted in the reduction of active gangs by 50%. We continue to increase firearm seizures, and in more communities, we are experiencing less violence. We will realize our vision of Jamaica as the place of choice to live, work, do business, raise families, and retire in peace and prosperity.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Young Jamaicans up to 35, your government will reserve up to 10% of NHT housing solutions over the next 5 years, just for you with 100% financing up to 15 million Jamaican dollars. This is how we are empowering and breaking the cycle of poverty meaningfully. Your government is caring for you.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Spiritual health is a personal journey that makes us feel good about ourselves and helps us lead a happier and balanced life. Hi guys, Chris Tufton here again. We're the last in our video series on mental wellness with the focus today on spiritual wellness. You know, Jamaicans have a rich history of giving priority to their spiritual health, appreciating that we are a part of something bigger than ourselves. Today we hope to help you to understand a little bit better your own spiritual health and to provide you with some tips on achieving spiritual wellness. Being spiritually healthy means feeling connected to something bigger than yourself, bigger than ourselves, like God or a higher power. We can achieve this by doing things like praying, meditating, reading special books, fasting. When we feel spiritually healthy, it brings us peace and helps us deal with stress and other feelings. It's like having